Hi. Hi, friend. I feel like we should probably introduce ourselves first. Um, I'm River. Hello. My so I'm just here with Jeanette. Um, yeah, my pronouns are they, them, and we're here to have a conversation about language hunters. Um,
My pronouns she, her.
what
So
did you say?
River, my pronouns are she, her. So my this week I'm going to be releasing a batch of tester videos for the Language Hunters program that you and I are working on. And you and I realized that we need to give a little bit of context for like how they work, why they're the way they are, and go a little bit into like your experience using them, my experience using them, so people who are new to them aren't caught off guard by the fact that they're different than most language learning programs.
Okay. So I feel like then we should start with, um, what are these videos?
Yeah,
How are they set up? What is like the purpose of them that you
yeah.
want to share with people?
Okay, so there's 3 videos, and each video goes through a lesson. Language Hunters, which is the model we're using, uses absolutely no English. You get the context, or the context of the setup teaches you the language. So it goes through a bunch of questions of journalism, like who, what, when, where, how, and then at the very end, why. But we're just starting with the first one. So the first 3 questions are really simple. So like, kade sha, and K-Vade. And you'll know what those mean by the scenario we've set up for you. So when you first come to the video, it starts and there will be Brian and I, and Brian will say lista, and that's giving you the list of words we're going to use. In the first video, there's no lista because it's a pretty simple scenario, and if you watch it once or twice, it should start to make sense. But then later on, there'll be lista. After that, Brian's going to mimic the conversation. He'll be in this position and he'll ask a question. He'll move to this position and he'll answer it. And he's going to role play the entire question series we're going to go through in the one video. Then Brian and I will ask the questions. It'll stop. You can rewatch it again and again as many times as you like. And then at the end of each video is a practice section where I'm not going to speak, but I will do the hand gestures and you can use the words as if you're me. So you can practice the things that we've just gone over, and I will be there doing the hand gestures to kind of pull you through it. Is there anything I'm missing there, River, that would make that more clear?
Well, I think I don't think so. I'm thinking about like um why why not have English
Yeah.
as a part of this?
So I was learning Irish for about 5 years before I found this model. And in the 5 years previous, I was really struggling. What I noticed is traditional language learning really works for some folks. It works for people who like book learning or who like to be put on the spot and ask questions or who can memorize things. But it wasn't meeting a need I had. And then I went and I saw a Squamish language program that was using a model called Where Are Your Keys? And it's play based. There's no English, and it's fully immersive. And so you have to like figure out what's going on as if a little kid figures out what's going on. We're not going to teach you why you're saying what you're saying. We're just going to show you what to say and have you mimic us. And then through that process, your body passively absorbs the information. There's this really neat process called bubbling up. And it's the idea that whatever you're learning in that moment isn't actually what you're learning. So when you do video 1 and you watch it, you're kind of sitting and absorbing and passively learning, but you're not really learning video 1. When you move on to video 2 and you're listening to video 2, that's when video 1 starts to really make sense and fit your body. And I know that both of us have had this experience where we'll play and we don't really get it. And then a couple days later, it just makes sense and it like crystallizes in your brain. So we're not giving you any English in this hopes of building your language brain around Irish the way you would as a kid. There's not going to be any one-to-one translation. So when you're speaking Irish, you're not going to be translating from English into Irish. You're just going to be speaking Irish because you understand Irish as a way to make sense of the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I didn't
Yeah.
mention this. I sort of did, but um, the words are connected with a cipher sign language. It's not quite ASL and it's not quite ISL, Irish Sign Language. It's like a shorter version of the two of them or a simpler version. But what it does is if we combine, so like cod, a, shaw, those words are going to get attached to the hand gesture. So if you have difficulty remembering the word, but you do the hand gesture, it's going to pull it from your brain in a way that's like quite surprising and a little bit like eerie the first couple times it happens.
Yeah, I remember that when I was first learning with you, and that even when I was just thinking about it after our, time together, and I couldn't recall what the word was, I could recall the gesture, and then sometimes the gesture would really lead me to the word. I'd be like, oh yeah, that's the one. But
I
it was
remember
like the gesture was the first thing that I would go to.
you sent me a text message the first time that
I
happened.
know.
I was so excited. No, I remember being somewhere and I was telling somebody that I'd learned the word for backpack, but that I couldn't remember what it was. And then I just like hit my back and it came back. And I was like, oh, this is like, this works in a way that I wasn't understanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know the other day when you and I were playing, one of the things you and I talked about was how weird it feels. Like we took you into a new lesson that you hadn't done before. Do you want to
Uh-huh.
talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying, like, I remember when first starting out, there was definitely like, I really wanted to have the English to rely upon. It felt like um unsettling even a little bit. Like, what does this word mean? What is the direct translation? But instead of like, over time, I was like, Irish is its own language. And then I had a curiosity that was naturally developing of like listening to the tone or trying to get a general gist or feeling from the words that were being spoken rather than like, what's the direct translation? Because often there won't be always a direct translation, or it's just like it's a totally different concept of a language and it's structured differently. And so um, now I actually don't want to know the English at all. And I really want to, like, I get pleasure trying to figure it out. And so, um, yeah, when I had to learn a new lesson, I mean, I felt like more ready for it, but it was definitely, I mean, it's fun to kind of play around in it and to like not know and to trust that you and Brian are going to carry me through with gestures. And so I felt like it's like I know I feel supported. And after working with you guys for a while on this, like I know I feel this way. I can like trust in the process of like how we're doing this and just like be in the like playful experience of it and then be like totally mess up and not get it right and be it's fine. It's a part of it and it's like the fun part.
In that
So.
lesson, I remember I was like kind of leaning in and I was almost going to give you the word and you're like, don't give me the word. And, and it was the same word that I didn't know because when I hit that lesson with Brienne, it's Mar. And
Oh.
I was like, I was teaching it to someone else. They're like, what is that word? And I was like, I have no idea. I don't know what it is, but I know I need to put it between these things. And that's where it lives and it does a function and it kind of makes sense in my brain, but I have no idea. And it's like you said, it's like we're not just learning a new language, we're learning an entirely different way to understand the world. Like
Mm-hmm.
Irish sentence structure, Irish words, they all mean things that don't necessarily have direct translations because the understanding of relationship between things is different. Like they're,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't want to give things away, but like Brian said, there's no word for have. It's like ugum, ugget, but it's not a direct translation. It's not the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. So you can't, like, if I was to give you that word, you lose the meaning of it and you think it's this thing that exists in English, but that word doesn't exist in Irish. And so by completely leaving English, you start to understand relationships differently. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not, yeah, the unsettling thing, you and I remember we were talking in class last week with Brian, and you and I were saying that um, like we want to do these lessons in conjunction with unlearning whiteness and recognizing where empire exists in the world and where we replicate empire. And we were saying that these lessons, like we want to start with the language lessons before we do anything else because it gives us tools that we realized are really similar to tools we've needed in our unlearning of like whiteness and the ways we
Mm-hmm.
replicate that in the world around us. And one of them is the like comfort with discomfort, comfort
Yeah.
not knowing what's going on, not needing to know what's happening, and not needing to be right in the moment, comfort with like mistakes.
Right. And not having, yeah, like I said, not needing to know everything along the way, but being also like just in a learning, observing um, position as well. And then waiting until you feel more comfortable or in a playful way too. So I feel like, yeah, the things that the language piece and language hunters gives us the tools can like ripple out into these other parts of our lives as well
Mm.
that feel really important.
And through play, like I remember when I went to the Squamish language program, the thing that I really saw was everyone was having fun. They were like laughing, they were joking with each other. And that's not something I'd seen in my previous language classes. And there was
Mm-hmm.
this in Language Hunters, how it would work if we're all together is Brian would teach the most like fluent player, and then the next most fluent player would jump in, and then the next most fluent player, and we just hand it off. And so you get all this time where you're getting to watch passively and learn from other people. And then when you feel comfortable and ready, you can jump in. And the thing I remember seeing, like I was at this Squamish language program with an Irish teacher, and they were showing us like how to learn through context, not through explanation. And my Irish teacher was teaching me this situation, and I got lost. And she was like, "Come on, you know it. Come on, you know it." And the woman from the Squamish Nation who was with us was like, "Don't leave her hanging. Help her." And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and it had totally shifted it. And so that's the thing with this language hunters I'm noticing is if ever you're stuck, somebody is right there to tell you the gesture, to pull you along. And I'm learning to look to Brian when I don't know what's happening instead of Brian can always catch me when I look off to the side when I'm trying to retrieve information from my brain instead of trusting that he's going to catch me or trusting that he's going to
Mm-hmm.
carry me through. And so I'm having to relearn, like, I'm unlearning self reliance and I'm unlearning memory and I'm learning trust and I'm learning that I'm going to be supported and I'm learning that the people around me want me to succeed and that, like, when we don't know, there's like genuine celebration that we don't know. And like, I
Mm-hmm.
loved watching you with Mar, where you were like, I don't get it, but I know I'm going to get it. And like, just that there's this look I see in my own eyes and I see it in yours. We don't really know what's happening, but we're like, curious and kind of trusting that eventually we're going to know. And that right now is just this murky time when we don't know, but we can find like pleasure and delight in the murkiness.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's like how children and people learn languages through relationship. And so it makes sense to be supporting each other. And I think Breen was saying this like when a kid is trying to say spaghetti, but they say paschetti. And you could be like, it's spaghetti, but then they're like paschetti, and they end up like we'll end up getting it over time, but you're like, yeah, that's right. And there's not like this, no, it's this, and you must pronounce it like this. It's like our mouths like have to shift shape because Irish is different in the throat, it's different in the mouth than English is. And so like this area really does like have to loosen up. It has to make different sounds that we've never made before
Yeah, like we
if
have
you
to
just speak
build muscle.
English. Yeah, so it's really like having play and having ease and being in relationship while learning a language feels way more supportive to that process of like we really want to be Irish speakers and really and like be in that frame of mind. And in order to do that, like dropping English is really helpful. And yeah, helping each other along the way and not being like, you have to memorize and regurgitate and you're going to be tested or you're going to, like traditional models of schooling, which, like you said, do work for some people. But in this, the reason why we're doing this is to really get us out of a different way of thinking and being comfortable in ways that maybe we don't think are going to be comfortable right away, but end up being comfortable, especially if we build trusting relationships with people that we're working with.
Yeah, they end up being like I've never been in a language class where I'm having fun. like like when we hang out and practice Irish together, it's like I feel more alive in this way where I've never felt alive in a language class. Like I may feel alive practicing a language, but the whole process of learning is enjoyable. And yeah, there was something else when you were talking about, oh, the mouth. Yeah, I remember one of the lesson 3 that we're releasing for the tests is like uh cavade. So like cavade.
Mm.
And when I hit hop on, I was like, fuck this. I am so done learning Irish. Because the word ha, ha, cup on is like, I literally had to build those muscles. Like I didn't have those muscles. And so I actually couldn't say the word. Like, uh, one of the nice things is Brian is like patient as long as the day is long. Like he
Yeah.
will hold that space for you. And there's a gesture. So everything in Language Hunters is gesture. So this is when we're trying to correct pronunciation. But Brian will let you say the word, like he will never interrupt you to be like, oh, you said that wrong. He will maybe mimic, like when he says the word next time, he might emphasize it for you. And then sometimes he'll be like, okay, this is how we're gonna say it. But he will let you slowly build that muscle. And there's no like shame or like fear around it. It's just a recognition that these are entirely new parts of our mouths we're using. Like I have never made like a "ra" sound
I know,
with a
same.
word before.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just thinking about like in that round that we just did where I didn't, it was my first time going through it. I really couldn't get one of the words.
Oh
I
yeah.
still don't get it. I'm like, I don't know what it is. I don't remember. But every time I was like, oh, it was like this one. Anyway, the
Fween.
no. It was further on. But anyway, I couldn't get it. It was the last time that we played. And um so I remember he kept having to tell me every time, but it didn't feel like that was a bad thing. It was like I just don't remember. And actually, I think it's kind of like what I like about this is like the point where I reach my limit
Yes.
on doing it, where I start to, which I think it's fun because it's like silly because it's like your brain is like it does loopy weird stuff. It makes new sounds or like like add stuff in, and that's like, oh, I can't take another round. Like it's done. But it's I don't know. I think it's actually kind of fun when it reaches that point because it feels extra playful and extra silly. Because you're like, I don't know, I'm just gonna wing it.
Yeah, that it's a specific feeling, and we call it lawn de bail. So like lawn de bail, and it's when like I feel my brain like it feels like it's short circuiting, like it's literally absorbed as much as it can, and I cannot get any more. And Brian also can often like recognize it in my eyes. He's like, "Oh, you're shutting down," which is something somebody today asked me. They were like, "Oh, I would like to do the lessons, but I could only do an hour," and I was like, "Oh no, it's less than an hour. It's like
Yeah.
30 minutes, 15 minutes." Max 45 if you've got like a couple people playing together, but you
Oof.
can't actually do too much because you're absorbing so much new information.
Yeah, and the whole like the resting piece of like knowing your limit, and I think that's where like traditional schooling sucks. Is like they want you to they want you to always push beyond the limit of learning and continue to do that and continue to do that and like override your own brain capacity and knowing, internal knowing of like I want to stop.
You're
And you don't get to like rest and sit with the material. You have to like move on to the next thing, move on to the next thing and keep up pace. And it's like this, we have a limit, the limit's respected, and then you have periods of rest, whether it's a couple days or whatever that, and then you can play again. And that resting period, I feel like, is where like the integration of stuff actually really happens. And then if I come back to the lesson, I'll realize that I actually know more than what I did in the lesson, the previous lesson.
yeah, that's the thing. You 1 second. Hey, handsome. And you're making.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I didn't know.
Do you want to be in the video?
Want to say hi? Well, you were in the middle of the really like eloquent description. I can hear like a bunch of beeping.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't hear anything.
well, maybe I can edit my section out because there's like a part where you're talking and I'm like, I can hear Lauren. I don't know what to do with the rest piece. You're totally right. Like there's a bunch of neuroscience behind these models, and they're used in a lot of accelerated language programs. So programs that are designed for languages that have only a few speakers left, endangered languages, they use these models because they're shown to be the fastest way you can acquire language. And it just makes use of the way our brains are wired for language. Like language acquisition as a toddler isn't done through rote memorization and book learning or sitting and watching somebody or hours and hours and hours of learning. It's like designed for passive absorption. So if we were together in a space, we'd have like people playing, and you'd be nearby, like drinking tea or watching until you
Yeah.
wanted to jump in and then you'd play. And
Yeah.
you're right, like that time when you're not, I forget there's like a technical term for it, but it's essentially the bubbling up. It's the time you need, the rest time you need for your brain to absorb the information.
Yeah. I think about it like I'm learning to play the ukulele, and so I can see the like parallels of it where if I'm learning it, trying to learn a strum pattern and I get frustrated on it or I'm just done. But if I set the ukulele down for a couple days and I pick it up and then all of a sudden I have it, and it's like I need the actual like not doing it, not trying to power through the thing and try to get the thing for it to like all of a sudden it's natural and it's like I learned it. And so it's very similar to learning stuff like that. And it's like you said, I mean, we just keep saying like language is relational. And so when you're a kid, you're not learning in these typical ways that you learn when you're older. It's what's that? Who's that? What's this? What's that? What's that? It's pointing and someone going, it's this, and then you repeat it, it's that. And that's how it goes. And so it's not, the typical model that
Mhm.
we've been involved in anyway.
Which is,
And
yeah, it's why Language Hunters is set up around the questions. Like,
yeah.
follow a set number of questions and it takes you towards this end. So it starts off with really concrete questions, then it moves towards more like what do you think about? When do you do this? Things like this, not stuff that's like right in front of you, but we build towards those questions. And like you'll notice when you take these videos that we're not teaching you necessarily like where do you live?
Yeah.
Where is this thing? It's like stuff that you're going to use in your day to day. So we're going to start really simply with like how to get your needs met, because that's what language is about. It's getting our needs met. So that's where we're going to
Mm-hmm.
start.
I like that. Getting your needs met.
Through play and delight.
Yeah. And rest.
Yeah. Is there anything else? I'm looking at, because I have a couple of notes on the things we wanted to make sure we talked about. Creating our iris brain. The model itself helps us to learn a few key things that we can use when we look at like unlearning whiteness and pulling ourselves out of where we play into systems of power and violence. Um, yeah, not always needing to be right, just sitting with the uncertainty.
I have a question for you, which is why are we doing this? Why are we doing this way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it kind of goes back to how I got into learning Irish. And I've told this a couple different places, and so I don't know if it's gonna be repetitive for some folks, but in like 2012, I was doing solidarity work with some nations that were resisting pipelines. And one of the matriarchs said if I really wanted to be of service, that I should learn the language my family last spoke before English and talk about systems of violence and publicly. And I I had no idea what learning Irish would do. I was interested. It was a very direct request. And so it felt like to be in integrity, I needed to honor the request. And through learning Irish, all sorts of things started to shift in my world. The way I understand the world, my relationship to understanding and seeing whiteness, my own family history. Um, yeah, the language itself has been really transformative in that process. And we have like dreams for what we want grounded connections to be. And we don't want grounded connections it's not a language learning space solely. Like language is being used as a tool to help us do personal reconnection work, but not in service of self. The three of us, you, me, and Brian, all bring a real solid focus on we're doing this work in service of like justice and collective liberation. And we recognize that the reason we no longer have access to our language is because of a process of colonization and emigration that our families went through, and that we are now here on these lands and we're part of a process of dispossession that is harming Indigenous people. And this work isn't to reconnect us personally with our ancestors for like personal growth. It's for like personal growth comes with it, but that's not the aim. The aim is justice. So what we're hoping for is people who are looking to unlearn the ways we replicate whiteness in the world are going to come and take these workshops with us, or like participate in the classes for free. Like in whatever way this exists in the world, we want this to be a tool for us to each undo the ways that we have internalized and reproduced whiteness in the world. There's one other thing that's really important. Is there anything, River, that you think about in there that I didn't say?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about like another reason why we're starting with language is because it is such a strong cultural tie. So it's something that like we can land into to support ourselves as we go through the process of, unlearning whiteness and centering justice and these pieces that like we have community, we have a culture to, tap into and to learn about and like really learn about it too, like what the history and what really went on and but like as this language as a support for doing this work um, of justice.
And something that you and Brian and I have all talked about is like a real recognition that like we are no longer Irish. That's not something that we can't reclaim that. That's like for all of us, we have lost that part of our heritage and our culture and way of being. But we can reconnect with that. And then through that, like I was speaking to someone the other day who was talking about they went and saw ancestral works of art of theirs and like reconnected to these things inside themselves that they didn't have access to before, like song and language. And so this is following the idea that like inside our bodies is this heritage and we can reconnect,
Mm-hmm.
but we cannot claim to be Irish anymore. Like we have become
Mm-hmm.
something else entirely. But by reconnecting with these traditions, which are in our heritage and our ancestry, we can figure out who we are now, what brought us here, and work to figure out where we're going from here. How do we make amends? How do we make repair? And how do we find pathways forward?
Mm-hmm. Right. And how do we land in beauty? And I mean, I get excited about learning Irish to connect with native Irish speakers who, are doing cool work over there. And really, like, I think a big learning of mine was like, I grew up with a strong, your Irish identity in my family, even though I'm like Irish and Romanian heritage, but it was definitely like Irish was a thing, but it was a lot of it was like myth, kind of myth around it, and Irish sort of stuck in Ireland stuck in time. And when I went to go visit, I was like, I have to do a lot of learning of like what is Ireland, like, and not just come with what I have been taught about it, which is like such a limited view. Like, how do I really, learn about what's happening there and what has happened there and what people there are going through now and who's there and how are they speaking? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
How to do it in a good way.
Yeah, in a respectful way as best as possible. Um, and also, yeah, just to not assume I know things about it. And I feel like language is like a huge piece of that. When I started to really look into like going to Ireland, where I was going to go visit and all these things, and then I was, looking and seeing Irish and was like, this feels like a huge part of like respect and learning about this culture that I don't really know that much about, honestly.
This is picking up on a thread from before, but one of the things that you talked about with language is like the reconnecting to the beauty part. And I think in doing the deeper work of being like, okay, how did we come to leave? Why did we come to leave? What happened when we arrived here?
Mm-hmm.
What are the systems of violence that we are now benefiting from and replicating? One of the pieces of language that has allowed me to face all of that is that there's so much beauty hidden in the language. Like the word for the
Mm-hmm.
sea foam is I think it's the fisherman's flowers. Like in the language is just so much poetry and so much beauty. And so by us starting with language before because Brian has a master's in Irish history and lived in Ireland for a decade, and like he's going to come and tell us the history, like what
Mm-hmm.
happened in Irish colonization, how did we become tools of colonization here. And so the language is going to help us face these questions, and by doing it through play and doing it through like building friendship and um, building comfort in discomfort and building familiarity with making mistakes and building familiarity with not knowing while we learn something that's like beautiful, it's just allowing us to face this. It's like you have a healing balm as you do this hard work. So that's why we're starting with language first. And that's how Grounded Connections came to be.
I think one more question I have is just like, who is this for?
Yeah. Oh yeah. When you and Brian and I got together, or like when you joined Brian and I, you really brought like, what are we doing? Why do we want to be here? What's exciting about this for us? And the thing that we said is we want to meet activists and artists. We want to work with people who want these tools so that we can go out and create change in the world. Um, we really want to root it in this is a tool to be used in conjunction with other work. So if you're looking to be part of something that is actively seeking to undo systems of violence and systems of injustice, and who wants to do it in a way that's rooted in your ancestry but recognizes that we cannot claim to be Irish anymore. We're something else, that we recognize that we've internalized something and become something new. And so if you're looking for nuance, you're looking for a nuanced understanding and exploration of really honestly hard topics, but in a way that centers beauty and pleasure and accountability, we'd love to have you. Anything to add? Do you have anyone else you want to invite?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think you said it pretty well. You know, I think, yeah, people are interested in play and humor and who really like center justice. This is a part of the work. Yeah.
This is one of River's favorite things from Language Hunter. So I can give you like this. The other day, River and I were talking, and River was saying that you really like it when we pair hard conversations with like kind of everyday things. Like it's not overwhelming when we can separate like, yeah, this is a conversation about hard topics, but like there's fun and play in it too. So this is one of River's favorite things. Tame Fuer. Tame Fuer.
I mean, like, that's so cute. And I can't do it like that. It's like, I don't know.
Just a true expression of what that feels like to me. Fuer. If you join us, it's the 6th lesson, so you'll learn it after these 2 weeks. So let us know your thoughts and feelings on the video. We'd love to have you help us make them better.
All right.
So now that people have an understanding of what the videos are, how they're structured and how to flow through them, what we're looking for right now is feedback. We want to know if there's anything that would make this easier for you, if it made sense, if you found that after watching it a few times, you were able to understand what's going on. And if you want us to go slower, if you'd want us to repeat the lessons a couple times, if you want more time to practice. The way it's set up right now is there's the lesson, we go through it once, and then there's a practice section. And River, you had said that you would want to have like a video that was like that maybe, and then also the practices just on their own, so you don't have to go through the lesson once you've learned it, but you have somebody to practice with.
Yeah, having them be separate, you mean? So
yeah.
that yeah. Just so, yeah, if you just want to do the practice piece, like if you're comfortable with it and you would just want to do that, that way it's or at least time stamped or something, so people can just skip right to it.
Yeah, so that's the kind of feedback we're looking for. So if basically just let us know your experience. If there's knowing that there's going to be no English, is there anything else that could have made it easier for you that you would have enjoyed? And then in the future, we are planning on doing group play groups where we'll get together and practice Irish. And our thought it would be that you'd watch the video and get familiar with the lesson. If we were all together in person, it would be called extended family. It's a time when you just passively watch and absorb. So if you watch the videos and passively watch it, or if you watch the videos and you speak alongside, something we do when we're together is like if you're playing while you're speaking with Brian, I will gesture out the gesture so that I can continue to practice, or I'll mute myself and say it along with you. So feel free to do the same thing as you watch the videos. Watch them 2 or 3 times and then see if it makes more sense.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. It's like the invitation is for like play and messing up and all those pieces that we were talking about, and like just to notice if it's super frustrating, you know. I mean, I think we're getting all kinds of feedback of people saying that they got it, and it just depends on learning style, where you're at, or being comfortable with the new learning style.
I didn't turn off my notifications. Well, we'll call back later.
I think like just sitting, if there like, I don't want to set it up to that it is an uncomfortable experience. I know some people are super stoked to not have English be a part of it at all, and for me that was a little hard at first. But so that's what I'm like talking from my experience, like before feeling like really comfortable with it. But even if there's uncomfortableness or frustration, like your first pass, just to like let it rest and like come back to it again and keep see if there's like oh, now we get it, these kind of like aha moments or something. So the invitation is for like all the processes to happen, and for play, for time, for resting time, to be a part of that.
Yeah. Something that I don't know if people can see in the videos, but like we're really playful with each other. We're really supportive. Brian is endlessly patient and really does celebrate once you get it. And even if you're not getting it, Brian's like, you're always doing, there's like a close enough is good enough. I forget the gesture for that, but that's like, don't worry about it. We're just going to keep going. So know that we're just happy you're here. We're just happy to have you play with us. So thrilled that you're interested and that you want to do this, and excited to build something together where we can, like I was telling this to someone the other day, my long-term vision, like the reason we're creating this is because both you and I want to get fluent, and we know that we're going to get there faster if there's more of us together. And we want to build something where people can join at whatever level or whatever commitment they're interested in, but we can all get there together. It's not what I noticed in my other Irish classes was there's a lot of competition and a lot of like hierarchy on I'm better at this, or I don't want to talk to people at lower levels. And I don't want that. Like I get genuine delight because every time I know that you get through a lesson, it's like we're closer to being able to hunt this language together and like teach each other and share it. So you're really welcome here at whatever level you have, and thrilled to play together.
Yeah.
Slán go fóill.
Slán go fóill.